Well, I am trying to figure out which one of these 4 pieces that I want to turn today. This is a maple burl, and it has these real sharp spikes on it. But it's also kind of a wedge-shaped piece, and not that easy to mount. I've got an idea on it that I'd like to try, but I'm not sure if this will be the piece I do today. This is a piece of English walnut. It's a nice sized piece. It's got a nice shape to it, and it has spalting in it. This is Siberian elm. We had our elm tree trimmed in the backyard here a couple years ago, and this is one of the trimmings. That tree, the whole trunk is burl, and the branches that we had trimmed had some burl in it. Now this doesn't have a lot, so it might not stay. But Siberian elm is a pretty wood. Another piece of English walnut came from the same tree as this other one. This is kind of a crotch piece here. At least I'm pretty sure it was, because there was some really big crotch areas cut down. So I'm going to think about it a little bit longer. You think about which one you'd like to see me turn and see if we end up with the same idea. So I'll be back. We'll have the piece mounted in the lathe, and well, let's just see if you guessed right. I chose the English walnut with the spalting, and I could have cut the corners off, but I want to make as many shavings as I can. English walnut cuts like a dream, and the shavings are so fun to make. I'm going to tell you a little story about why I'm doing this as well, but I won't do that till we get going. I don't know if I mentioned, but it's 10.5 by 10.5, and it's 5.5. So let me get a couple more fans on, and I'll be right back, and we'll start turning. Okay, I'm back. We're turning 600 RPM, 5/8 bowl gouge. So the reason that I was looking forward to making these shavings is because it is really relaxing to watch those shavings fly off. And I needed to do that. I was pretty stressed out when they decided they would take the farm field behind us and just tear it apart, flatten it out, and build some houses. So in the process of doing that, all the critters that lived up there needed a new place to live. Well, at least a couple rats decided they wanted to live in the generator on our motorhome. Well, that was one thing, living in it, but they decided they wanted to chew 8 wires off. Well, that really stressed me out because I had to figure out how to hook them up. 7 were pretty easy. The 8th one was a nightmare finding it, even with the schematics. I finally found it, I got it hooked up, and it works. So last video I mentioned that I may not have internet. That's because we were out in the motorhome using it. So guess what? I'm going to start the generator up so you can know that I actually fixed it, and then we'll get back to the video. There you go. That looks pretty cool there. A little off center here. I think I'll flatten this off. Alright, I cut that off. You take a little bit of this off to get a base to sit on, and if I leave a little bit of that, I'm okay with it. This actually looks quite nice. It's the next day and it's really comfortable, so I don't think I'll need to run those fans to keep cool. I did notice after this sat all night there's a crack right here. It could have been there last night, but I don't remember it. And here, filled it with the brown Starbond CA. I also noticed after picking up the shavings on the floor that it's very dry. So this could be from another batch of English walnut that I got maybe 3.5 years ago. But I almost have the shape I want here, so I'm going to clean this up and then we'll get a tenon on it. So we're doing about close to 800 RPM. I just sharpened the 1/2-inch bowl gouge. Well, actually that cut pretty good, and it is still, it's dry, but it's actually been, even the second batch I got, been sitting for a while. Yeah, I'm just going to investigate this crack here and work on getting this flat, get a tenon in there. Alright, I'm going to use this little diamond point. This came from a set of Craftsman tools that I bought pretty close to 50 years ago. There's still something left on it, so I'll keep using it. Now, and you know, I got this close to getting rid of that little area, so I think I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, one of the few places I use carbide would be to flatten this top off before I flip it around. Okay, I'm ready to sand this, but I want to show you something I did about 2 years ago or so, and I have a video of it. I ran out of 80 grit today, and I do want to start with 80 here. I take a worn out disc, as long as the backing is good, and a piece of sandpaper of the grit that I want, spray it with this spray-on adhesive, get it stuck together, and then I trim it like so. I could make it totally round, but for what I'm doing, this works. I've already got one in my drill here. I'm going to start sanding in reverse at about 350 RPM. I'll sand this through 400 and I'll come back and we'll get it flipped around. And I'll put the finish on it when we're through. So I'll show you what that looks like as soon as I start my dust collector. I have the piece flipped around now. I'm going to start with a 5/8 bowl gouge. This isn't flat, so I'll get it flattened out and I'll start hollowing it out, getting close to the wall, and work my way down. Doing about 800 RPM. Switch to a 1/2 inch just to thin that wall out just a little bit. Alright, I'm going to move the tailstock back just because I want to take a little bit off of here and I just cannot get a good angle. Alright, I think that's a little better view for you, and I just measured the wall. It's a 1/2 inch. I think I'll take about an 1/8 inch off. That's about an 1/8 of an inch. I'd say we're pretty close to 3/8, and I think that's what I want on this one. So I'll just keep working down this wall, trying to keep it parallel to the outside, and then we'll start cutting more out of the center and do it again. More speed. Got a little shake in it. 850 RPM. Alright, a little tip when you do the center and get rid of anything sticking up, don't leave it low, leave it high. It'll sand out easy. If it's low, it means you got to sand all this to get it blended in. That's not going to be too much to sand. So I am ready to sand. But guess what? I've got a whole pile of dry shavings. I need to collect them and go deliver them out to the backyard. Okay, I got all the shavings vacuumed up. I'm going to go ahead and sand this, starting with 80 grit. And I put some pencil lines on that little raised area. It's probably only a 30-second. And I also have some dark color here, so I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. But I'll have the lathe turning at about 400 RPM. I'm going to get my dust collector on, and we'll see if we can sand this up. Alright, time for the finish, and that spalting really looks nice, and it is a little shiny, but sometimes on the softer woods I like to put a coat of the sanding sealer on and then re-sand it. That's what I've done. But I'll show you the process because I'll put one more coat of the Minwax water-based sanding sealer on it so you can see how that works. Now it does go on a lot better after you've had one coat and sanded it. But prior to that, it'll be somewhat milky looking. But now it goes on really nice, and I think that's going to really be pretty. You can wipe this until there's no streaks. That works pretty good. But you can also run it slow, and I like to do it in reverse. Any of the splatter goes away from me, if there is any. And even slower than that, and it evened it out. So that just might be all I'm going to do for putting finish on it, other than I'll go over it with the Acks abrasive paste, and I'll be back and show you that. I'm going to go ahead and put the finish on the inside just like that. So I'll see you shortly. I let that second coat of sealer dry for at least a couple hours. Then I went over it with the white Scotch-Brite. I've just put some Acks abrasive paste on this, and if you want to see more of how I do that, I'll put a link in the description for a video where that's just about all I do. So I'm going to show you a little bit of this, and then we'll come back and remove that tinner. And there we have it. It's making noises. I don't like it. Slow that down. See, it's kind of crumbling. Oh yeah, we're done. We'll cut that off the next time. I was afraid of that. I don't know if you can see it, but that wood just chipped out where my center was at. And that could have been a disaster. So that's as far as I need to go. Well, it is all done, and I really like how it turned out. It's got some great spalting in there. That looks really nice. And so does that. The inside looks great. And even the bottom looks nice. It finished 9 inches in diameter. It's 4 inches tall, and the base is 4 3/4 of an inch. And the walls are 3/8 of an inch. Did something a little different on the finish here. I used 2 coats of Minwax water-based sanding sealer, and then I just went straight to the Acks sanding paste and polishing paste, and that gave it a really nice finish. Real simple to do. So hopefully after getting all those wires fixed, I can move on to something a little more complex than what I was doing here, but I do hope you enjoyed this video as well. If you did like the video, do me a favor and click that like button. And while you're there, it would be great if you could share the video around. Those 2 things will really help my channel grow. Leave a comment. I read them all, and I do my best to answer them all. Thanks to all my subscribers. And if you're not, please consider doing so. I do a mix of all types of turnings. Some are simple and some are complex, so let me know your favorite. Thanks again, and until the next time, see you later.